Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist and a certified personal trainer. Everything we discuss in the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. You kind of caught us here because we were right in the middle of a conversation. It was pretty interesting. So I'm here with Steve Messineo. Messineo, correct?
Yeah, you got it.
And Steve, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Steve Messineo. I'm the Business Development Director at Fairlawn Rehabilitation Hospital in Worcester. Fairlawn is, as I said, rehabilitation hospital, also known as an inpatient rehab facility. We, in our industry, call it an IRF. But our hospital is located right on May Street, 189 May Street. And our goal is to help patients that are recovering from a variety of different conditions get back home and return to the community and be able to do the things that they were doing prior to being admitted to, say, an acute care hospital like UMass Memorial or St. Bede's, that type of thing. So,
right, and so. In other words, somebody obviously they're coming out of the hospital, but there's no longer what they call acute care, right?
Yes.
Acute care.
Yeah.
And that insurance pays for that to a certain point, right? I mean, in acute care, and then they want to get you out.
Yeah. There are expectations on the insurance providers, particularly Medicare. There are guidelines that are offered to the hospitals, depending on what type of hospital and so forth, and obviously the length of stay that a patient has in an acute care hospital. Say like at UMass or St. Bede's, to name two locally, there's expectation that you get them in, you take care of them, get them to the point where they can be discharged either back home or maybe they get discharged to a facility like ours, or they may get discharged to a place like a skilled nursing facility or a long-term acute care facility. So it really depends on the patient and where they're at in that acute care process. And of course, where they, the people in the acute care realm, the physicians, the nurses, case managers feel like is most appropriate for them to be discharged to. But generally, an acute care stay is short. Ideally, it's anywhere from 1 to maybe 5-6 days at the most. Then, because the hospital is looking to move them based on the insurance guidelines that are set by either the Centers for Medicare Services or, of course, the other insurance companies that are out there.
Right. The other thing, so the viewers will know. So what happens normally? You have in a hospital, you have a case manager.
Yep.
And they're going to oversee your case. That's why I call them case manager. And so what will happen is that they're going to say, well, there's no longer acute care now, and we have to move them out. And some people go to nursing homes, right?
Yeah, and that's a skilled nursing facility. We call it a SNF, and those people typically. They may not have the level of medical coverage necessity. In other words, their medical complexity is low. In other words, they don't need a physician overseeing them more than maybe once a week. But they do have some rehabilitative needs that are going to take a while. In other words, they can only tolerate so much in terms of overall movement based on their condition. So they'll go to a skilled nursing facility for their recovery. That's one instance.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, but obviously a person that doesn't need to go to a nursing home, they'd go to a place like Fairlawn, right?
Yeah, and the qualifications for a facility like ours, like I said, we're IRF level. For Fairlawn, we look at a couple of factors. One, does the patient have a medical complexity that requires one of our physicians to basically take care of them and be managing their care at least 3 days a week, and then be part of a team of individuals, case managers, nurses, rehab professionals that basically provide and then review a plan as the patient is staying within our hospital to making sure that they're getting better and that they are on track for getting home. That's our ultimate goal. When a patient comes to Fairlawn, we want to be able to send them home, and sometimes it's home with additional services like home care services and so forth, and sometimes it's home just they're ready to get back into the community. It really depends on the patient. But ultimately our goal is to send them home. We don't really want to have to send them to a skilled nursing facility or back to the acute care hospital, because that doesn't do the patient any good. So, and then of course that affects our overall ability, our performance, metrics, and when we're looking at what we're doing for those patients. So it's important that we when we bring patients in, that they have the medical complexity, they also have a rehabilitative need, and we recommend that they are able to tolerate 3 hours of rehabilitative therapies a day. That includes physical therapy, occupational therapy, and in some cases speech therapy, depending on the patient's condition. And so they are, that 3 hours is not done all at once, it's spread out throughout the day, but the patient needs to be able to tolerate that. Now that may seem like a lot, but we also tailor our therapies to the patient's condition, and we obviously encourage them to get moving, but we're not like just starting them right on a treadmill and doing 1,000,000 miles per hour or anything like that. It's really patient-based therapy that allows them to progress and allows them to, again, get back to what they were doing at home prior to being admitted to the acute care hospital. So things like getting in and out of a car, or going up and down a set of stairs, or being able to maintain their balance as they walk throughout their house. Being able to, cook and manage cooking tools, and lifting things in and out of their cabinets. Little things that we take for granted when we're, on a day-to-day basis. But when you have a medical condition that really, sets you back, these things are the things that we do to help them in the rehab process get back to be able to do on a regular basis.
Right. In fact, for the listeners out there, maybe people as old as I am, most of my friends, all of their children were born at Fairlawn Hospital. It was Fairlawn Hospital.
Oh yeah, hospital, yeah, back in the day.
So that's what we knew as Fairlawn Hospital as basically like a birthing hospital. Mm-hmm. But before when it was actually a regular hospital. I had a hip replacement done, 20, 25 years ago, and I went to a very similar facility. Mm-hmm. And they sent me in there, and I remember the occupational, and they had like a car there, literally like a car inside of it. Yeah. And they showed me basically how to go, safely, how to go from A to B, because you don't know, you can't do it in your house, obviously. Right. So I see kind of a nursing home, but you're probably not coming out of a nursing home, but the whole idea with you is that you want to get them back, back on their feet, and as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. But the other thing Steve and I were talking about, I was just listening to this cardiac show, and the new thing with cardiology now, even in ICU, they're trying to get the people to move as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. Because what happens, maybe you know this, there's so many after so many days in the bed, you lose so much muscle mass. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of studies on this. Yeah,
I mean, look, it's the old saying: if you don't use it, you lose it, right? And that's there's muscle wasting, muscle deconditioning. My background is in physical therapy, so certainly we always encouraged our patients to get started with therapies as soon as they possibly could. After either being in an acute care setting or obviously maybe after surgery. The sooner you're able to move and get muscles firing and get blood flow going to a region, say in a particular injury, for example, the better in terms of the overall recovery and getting things going. Well, the same thing applies to patients coming to our facility. Is the goal is to get them moving, and movement, obviously allows a patient to make progress. It allows them to use their nervous system, their muscular system, and strengthens the skeletal system. It's all the things that are necessary for people to get back to normal activity. But if you don't move, then you're actually just setting yourself backwards. And that's why when we screen patients to come to our facility, we have to make sure that they're able to do the therapies, the level of therapies we want to, because our goal is to get them, our goal is really a short-term stay. Anywhere from 10 to 14 days. That's our average. In fact, we generally average about 12 days length of stay at our facility for every patient that comes through. So we don't want them there a long time, and the goal is for them not to be there a long time, not only for us, but for them. We want patients who are motivated to get back home and get back to what they're doing. So when we are working with them, we're working with individuals that are, I don't want to be in a hospital much longer. I don't want to end up in a skilled nursing facility or that type of thing. So we really look out for that.
And I guess the big question would be from the viewers is this covered by insurance?
Yeah, we accept pretty much most major insurance companies that are offered in Massachusetts. Yeah.
So again, myself, I have a family member. We're in the hospital. We're ready to come out, and we're not ready for the nursing home. We're ready for a rehab hospital. Mm-hmm. So would I then talk to the case manager, saying, I really would like to go to Fairlawn?
Yeah.
You could obviously request that.
Yeah, of course. Patient choice in Massachusetts, being able to choose where you want to go is your right. If you are an individual that, say, even if it's a family member that's in the acute care hospital, you can be in a position where even helping them decide where to go, and just letting them know that if they want to go to a Fairlawn because they want to get back home, they can certainly let the doctor, case manager, nurses know that that's where they want to go. It's their choice. So that's what I would recommend to anybody. Just keep it in mind. Now, of course, if in that same right, if they're feeling like they're able to tolerate the level of 3 hours of therapy a day, or really want to take their time in their recovery because they know their bodies, well, then another form of rehab facility may be a better option for them out of the gates, like a skilled nursing facility or like a long-term acute care facility. So it really depends on the patient, but we certainly encourage patients to speak their voice and choose where they want to go. And generally, the case managers and hospitalists will coordinate that with them. And if for example, let's pretend you're a patient in in an acute care hospital, and you say, I want to go to Fairlawn for rehab, then what happens is the case manager will put in a referral to our facility. Our admissions team picks that up, and then what happens is one of my team members, our rehab liaisons, they'll meet with you and get to understand you a little bit, understand what your goals are, what you were doing prior to being admitted to the hospital, what type of activities you were doing, what you'd like to get back to being able to do, get an understanding of what your home looks like in terms of any obstacles that we need to consider in terms of your overall rehab plan of care, all those things. We've had to get a lot of information about who you are as an individual patient, and then obviously we can kind of give you some information about how we can leverage the resources we have at our hospital, our expert therapists, as well as our various therapy tools to help you get back to what you want to be able to do and get you home sooner than later.
So why would somebody choose Fairlawn over another facility?
If you're talking about like other inpatient rehab facilities like ours, I think the nice part about our facility is a couple things. One, we are Gold Seal Joint Commission certified providers for 5 different major diagnoses. So we have basically it's an accreditation that sets us apart in terms of stroke care, Parkinson's care, amputations, hip fractures, and brain injury care. So that's one thing. So if you have any of those, certainly we have the expertise, and we have to demonstrate that expertise in order to maintain our accreditation, for helping patients recover from those particular conditions. Additionally, we have a joint venture with UMass Memorial Hospital in that we are able to leverage their services and have a lot of open communication back and forth to those physicians and caregivers that may be referring our patients to us. And they're really one of our biggest referral sources in the region. It's nice to have that partnership and that back and forth in terms of the overall patient care, because it allows for a seamless process in getting the patients sent back home. Additionally, we just offer such a wealth and variety of different treatment options for the variety of different conditions we have. Our therapy gyms are just full of different toys and activity areas that allow a patient to really go from really not moving at all or not moving very much to really getting back on their feet and back out into the community and doing what they want to do. And I think that's really some of the things that really sets us apart. We're really big on our metrics and making sure that we are demonstrating that patients are making gains. And so we're constantly tracking that. We're constantly setting the bar high for our rehab teams and our physicians and our caretakers to continue to improve, continue to demonstrate that we can take good care of patients and get them back to the community within a shorter length of stay. So we're very driven metric-wise to do that, and I think there's not a lot of facilities that do that. Okay,
and anybody that knows me, I have a lot of people on my show, and I have a rule. I don't have anybody on my show that I would use myself, so I'll give you a personal story. So my son, he was probably around 20, he got hit by a cab. And he wound up at Fairlawn. I had my other son, actually, at a different time, took a really bad fall and wound up there. My other son, I don't know how he was there for a while, because I was up there a lot. I was at Fairlawn a lot. I was sitting there. I was sitting with him, when he was there, people coming in, coming out. So I can tell you personally, I was very impressed with Fairlawn. If I had to go anywhere, I'd want to go to Fairlawn. It's a beautiful facility, good parking, that's important. It's easy to find, it's easy to get to. Yeah. I don't know this, but I'm guessing more of these Boston type of hospitals, you got to drive into Boston, you got to go through the traffic, got to go through this, you got to go through that. easy in, easy out. And again, I was really impressed. I was with my son with a lot of things they were doing in terms of the physical therapy and other things. And his room was really nice, only 2 people in the room. I liked that, and I sat there. And there was one gentleman in the room with my son, and it was I don't know if it was his personal aide or it was an aide from there, just talking. And so the aide and I wound up talking. You know, it's just a very folksy, homesy type of feeling that I have. You don't feel like you're in this sterile, big place where, it's kind of like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. You know what I mean? It's kind of that thing. So I'll give you my personal endorsement, because I've been, I have to deal with it twice. If I had to, if I have to go back into rehab, which I hope I don't, I would certainly go to Fairlawn.
Well, certainly appreciate the testimonial. I'm very happy that your son's had an exceptional experience there. That's really our goal. It's not just about the hospital care. It's just the personal care and giving our patients the personal touch. We try to get as much information about the patients, what their likes are, so that when they are staying with us, we kind of incorporate some of those things into their overall care and just making them feel comfortable about being there in the first place. Nobody really wants to be in the hospital, so if you're going to have to stay a bit of time, then you may as well be the best experience possible. And I think that's really what our team strives for. And patient satisfaction and really coming away with a sense of those people were great, and now I'm back into the community and doing the things I want. And it really is the goal of our team to make our patients feel good about their experience and get them back to where they want to be.
So, can you give us an example of the typical cases you get at Fairlawn?
Well, I mentioned a couple of them already this morning. I certainly see a good amount of patients who have suffered a stroke. Same with patients who had hip fractures, patients with Parkinson's. Brain injuries are a big condition that we deal with in terms of patient care. Major multiple traumas, so people have maybe suffered a car accident, had multiple fractures and some internal ailments as a result of the accident. We'll bring them in for some rehab stay. What else? Neurological conditions like MS, or I think I mentioned Parkinson's earlier. There's a wide variety of what we do, but ultimately it's not necessarily dependent on the diagnosis. It's dependent on the condition of the individual and their need for some short-term rehabilitation to get them back home and overcome their particular condition.
It's funny. Now you're talking about funny. It's interesting. You're talking about stroke. Not that a stroke is funny, but I remember way back when I was in college, when the dinosaurs ruled the earth. Anyway, so when I was in college, we were taught that once your brain cells were gone, they're gone. You're gone. We used to have a joke when I was a kid. We used to go out and drink. Let's go kill some brain cells. You know what I mean? So that was the joke.
Sure.
So that's what I was taught. And the way you're the expert on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the way they used to teach used to teach strokes. If this arm is gone, mm-hmm. they would just make your other arm and this is gone. It's dead meat. Forget about it. Then they came out with a new thing called neuroplasticity, mm-hmm. and all that means basically is the brain learns to rewire itself, mm-hmm. and so what happens, and they didn't know that back when I was in school. So what my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, what they would do now is, if this is your bad hand, this is the meat hand, and this is the good hand, they would tie this hand down, mm-hmm. and then they would turn around and they'd have you think. Try to move this finger, and then all of a sudden, this finger starts moving. Mm-hmm. And then, because what happens is your brain actually rewires itself. Yep. Like if you go blind, what happens is your brain doesn't want to waste real estate. So it'll take the optic nerve, which is in the back, and it'll take that part of it, and it'll reconfigure it and put it maybe so you get a great feeling, a touch, mm-hmm. or hearing. Your other senses get enhanced. Right. And we never knew. I never knew that before. But now, with physical therapy, they made just tremendous advancements now. What they can do. Is that what they do with stroke patients now?
Well, it's not only, and it's not to some extent. I mean, we're not tying anybody down, but we're certainly encouraging them to get that recovery in the limbs that have been affected by the stroke. That's certainly a big piece of what we do. But additionally, it's not just the physical therapist, it's the occupational therapist and the speech therapist, because you may have a problem swallowing. Well, the speech therapist can help you, again, help you with that rewiring process and get used to swallowing foods again. So there's a lot of, there's a lot more than just the PT side. The occupational therapists are very important in terms of, getting people back to doing their what we call activities of daily living, and using the various tools that can help them. Say, for example, if they're having trouble getting dressed, well, here's a tool that'll help you put your shoe on, or here's a tool that'll help you pull your pants up. Those type of things, and that's really basic in terms of what the occupational therapists do. But it's really a team effort, and I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, there's we really work hand in hand and build off each other's knowledge bases to help that patient get back to what they need to be doing. I think in terms of the overall. The one thing we also do with the patients, we also try to put them in a situation where they're able to connect with others like themselves and have, be part of support groups. So if you've suffered a stroke, it's major, that not only has a major impact on you physically, but can have a major impact on you mentally in terms of how you're feeling about yourself and so forth. So getting people connected and really understanding what their, mindset is like, so we can provide some psychiatric support, or maybe some group support where they're able to connect with other stroke survivors and get some encouragement for overcoming their condition. We're big on that. And then, of course, the other piece that we don't do that we haven't really talked about is creating awareness in the community. So one of the things I'm part of is a local stroke awareness group called Woo Stroke Alliance. And we get funding from the state to provide stroke information to the community, and so people are aware of the signs and symptoms of a stroke and how to react quickly, so that a patient suffering a stroke can get the best care as soon as possible and obviously recover a lot sooner. So there's some of that kind of education, community education that we do with the based on the various conditions we treat that that also sets us apart. Getting back to what you had asked earlier, we're really big on that community involvement and creating awareness out there.
Right, I think that's the key, because when I worked in the hospital, what happened when the ambulance was coming in, we'd hear a stroke victim coming in, and this goes way back in the Wayback Machine with me, but I think it was called TPA, right? They would inject basically, it's called called a proteolytic enzyme. What it does is it'll start breaking up the clot, because maybe you know this. I don't know how long you can go on oxygen in your brain, but you can eventually these brain cells are going to die, and they're not coming back. So the sooner you can get into the hospital, the better. So it's huge. I mean, this is the whole thing. What is it? Your face gets partially. Why don't you give us some of the things about the stroke?
Well, I mean, certainly you can. So it depends on the side of the brain, and so if you have a right-sided stroke, then obviously your left side of your body is affected, and vice versa. But things like facial droops, loss of movement in your limb, and one side of your body's limbs, and that type of thing. Slurred speech. There's a lot of different signs for strokes to be aware of. In fact, what I would encourage for a really comprehensive list is for your viewers to visit the Woo Stroke Alliance Facebook group. We're just literally rolling it out, and we'll be developing a website for that. There's a lot of great information on stroke support and stroke not diagnosis, but stroke just awareness in terms of what to look for when somebody's suffering a stroke. And it's a little more detailed than what I can share with you here right now.
But yeah, and if anybody wants any information from Steve, just easier to remember, email me, philgeorge@charlotte.net. Any questions about anything, I'll shoot them over to Steve, and we can get you over to the website.
And of course, we can provide them with any of the support materials that we have at Fairlawn as well.
Right, so there's, I think that's really, the key is, because again, you have to get, probably stroke, probably more than anything else I can think, you got to do it really, really quick.
Yeah.
You got to get in, because it's more that things are just, you're literally losing brain cells. It's kind of similar to a heart attack. If the heart starts dying, the muscles start dying. You've got to to get in fast.
Well, really, a lot of the stuff we talked about, brain injuries, major multiple traumas, you just have to, people need to get into care as soon as possible, and and then also ultimately get stabilized so that they can start that recovery process. That's the key. And if you're able to get them to the acute level first and sooner than later, and then with the medical management the teams at the acute care hospitals offer, and getting them stabilized and getting them ready to take their journey into the rehab journey that they're going to end up going on, the sooner you're able to do that, the better in terms of the overall care for that individual.
It's recalled something I read a while ago. It's a really good book. It's called The Stroke of Insight. It was written by a neurosurgeon that worked in the stroke ward, was having a stroke herself.
Oh, no kidding.
And what she said in the book, which was interesting, she woke up and she was having a stroke, and she says, "Oh my God, I'm having a stroke." She said, "Isn't this interesting?" Because it's one thing to deal with it. It's another thing if you actually are actually having it. And what she said was, and what you said before was, you can have a stroke on different sides of the brain, and you got your left brain, you got your right brain, and then you got the corpus callosum going down the middle, going back and forth, and but with one part. So I think the left part, if I remember correctly, that's more to do with with logic and reasoning, and the right is more to do with artsy stuff. And so I don't know what part it was, but she said she knew she was having a stroke, and then she went over but then she couldn't remember that how to use the telephone. Yeah. It was like she looked at the telephone and she said, "I don't know how to use it." And what was great about the book was she was just so fascinated that she could actually, because she was dealing with, you don't know what it's like to have a stroke. I don't know what it's like to have a stroke.
Right.
So what it's actually like, or what it's like to have a heart attack. So I just found that fascinating in terms of the stroke and what happens. So.
Yeah, it is fascinating, especially if you're dealing with it and you happen to be in the medical field like she was. That's an interesting story, but it's certainly there's so much out there that people that are not aware in terms of educational materials. And for example, we were at an event this past weekend in Marlborough, and had a lot of people come by this table we had for our Stroke Alliance group, and you would be surprised. It's surprising that people don't take as much of that information in, because it is something that can really impact your life if you're not aware, or if somebody is suffering from stroke, that you're not aware what to do for them. And I'd certainly encourage anybody viewing the show to get information on stroke awareness, and what signs to look for when a patient's having a stroke, because it'll make a world of difference for them in terms of getting the care they need. So.
Okay, so we got the sign. We're right to the end of the show. So Steve, how would they reach you again?
So they can, so we're on the web you can Google search Fairlawn Rehabilitation Hospital. You can also search for Encompass Health, Fairlawn Rehab. Encompass Health is our parent corporation. They're out of Birmingham, out of Alabama, but it's a company that basically manages 160 plus hospitals just like ours across the country. So in terms of, you asked me earlier, what is the benefit of coming to Fairlawn? We have this large corporation resource that also helps us to really set the bar high for any patients coming to our local hospital here. But Fairlawn Rehab, just search Fairlawn Rehabilitation Hospital on Google. You'll find us. We'll have a phone number there. The phone number is actually 508-471-9535. That's our admissions office. So if they have questions about getting a patient admitted to our facility, they can call that number, and one of my team will be able to address that with them and help them potentially get somebody admitted there.
Yeah, you can email me at philgeorge@charlotte. I'll give you my personal experience and with it. And I even encourage you, if you're thinking about it, go out and I'm sure they'll give you a tour.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You'll be so impressed. I mean, I went back. Steve and I met. I remember it's really nice. So we're gonna wrap up and tune in next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was good.
Yeah, that worked out well. Thanks. So
One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net, for a free consult.